Glad to have you join the big interview segment right here on On OGTV, the People's Telly. I am Dominic Agbe saying welcome. We sincerely apologize for the slight delay in the commencement of this segment. I mean, it was as a result of some logistics issues, but we've been able to surmount that, and now the program will continue. Now, this morning we are actually taking a look at the need to build ranches so as to curb farmers and herders clashes. Just recently, the federal government actually picked a couple of states and the FCT to say, okay, these states, we are actually going to embark on the building of ranches in these places so that we can actually reduce the conflicts between farmers and herders. Now, this particular issue, I mean, when you look at it critically, it has both it has the economic dimension, it has the cultural dimension, the technological dimension, and then even the security dimension. So we are going to be looking at all of these, hopefully, in the course of the conversation in the next couple of minutes. And to do justice to this topic is no other than, a familiar face, a regular on the show, Bayo Olabode is a current affairs analyst. Thank you so much for joining the conversation this morning.
Thank you, Dominic, for having me. Always a pleasure to see you and Moses.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming. Building ranches to curb farmers, herders, clashes. It was on Tuesday, I think I heard the Minister of Livestock Development, Idi Mukhtar Mahar, listed Plateau, Nasarawa, Kaduna, and Adamawa and FCT as priority areas for the intervention. And it looks so lofty, the grazing areas, there will be economic opportunities, there will be schools, they are going to attract investors, and all of that. So, I mean, looking at this, because we've seen this over and over again, we have it on paper, the blueprint is fine, but the implementation at times, it's always horrible. Yeah, so what's your expectation?
Okay, thank you, Moses. I was waiting for the last part of what you just said. I think to a large extent, this is one of the areas that the last administration really bungled up a lot of things, not handling the herders and farmers conflict with a lot of tact and with a lot of discretion. And the chicken has come home to roost today in terms of soaring food prices, because farmers are not able to access their farms, and those who are able to access their farms are working with one eye open and the other one on their weapons. So I think this is a welcome development, and it is one of the things that would address the growing food shortage in the country, because the farmers will need access to their farms, and people who are also interested in going into farming. I remember, because part of what I do is real estate, and as a realtor I sell land. People want to know if they are buying lands in areas where herders will not be a menace to them and a threat to them. Having said all this, I would want to also say that we don't have a problem with policy in Nigeria. The problem we have is implementation, just like you alluded. It's a very lofty idea. It is beautiful. If we look at the practice around the world today, particularly in the Far East, in Saudi Arabia, in Oman, Qatar, and the Gulf states that have a similar culture with the northern precious people of Nigeria, you find that we don't have this kind of issues with them. They're able to raise very healthy livestock, and they are the better served for it by doing that. So we don't have a problem with policy. We have a problem with enforcement. If this becomes the case now, will we get compliance? Sorry, that's what I meant to say, compliance. Will we get every one person who has cattle, who has herds, to be able to go to these facilities? And let me say this, I think the list you just mentioned, it didn't capture part of the Southwest. and southeast. I think maybe they'll be rolling that out eventually, because the place of origin for most of the traffic for livestock is the northwest particularly, and then the northeast and the north central. So having said that, implementation and enforcement is where we should be looking at. It's a very, very beautiful and welcome idea.
And we also have cattle. We have cows. We see cows almost on a daily basis, on our roads, even here in the southwest in Ogun State, Abeokuta. And then I can remember when the Buhari administration, hinted on its plans to, create ruga, across, the country. I mean, there was an uproar. I mean, some people were actually, scared and said, oh, this is an attempt to actually take our land from us and the rest of them. And then talking about, in future expanding this plan from the 6 states to other states of the Federation. Do you think this distrust, this fear that, people, particularly from the east, southwest, and south do have about, oh, the north, they are planning to take our land? Do you think that? How do you think that can actually be dispelled?
Thank you, Dominic. Like I said, and without any equivocation whatsoever, the last administration did not do well at all. There was perceived prejudice on their part, because it began first of all with the patrol cartway that did not address the menace of the herders, but was very, very hard on the farmers and their right to cause menace, to cause havoc, and to run roughshod across the country. And it was greeted with a lot of distrust, in fact, a lot of agitation. And I remember what you are saying very, very clearly. It was meant to possess people's ancestral land. I think there was a particular narrative that was making the news at that time that was very, very unpalatable. The messaging was actually very, very grotesque. It wasn't palatable at all. The persons in charge, I can't, for memory will fail me now to bring up their names, but the person who was communicating that was saying, is it not people who are alive that will defend their ancestral land? Those are very, very silly and uncouth statement to make to the public, because federal government, of course, has rights to most of the lands across the nation, but then there are also indigenous people, because the government is meant to serve the people, not the other way around. But the messaging at that time was very, very wrong. It was flawed, it was slanted, and it gave the impression that people, and don't forget, all through those 8 years of the past administration, what we had was very, very few curbing of the menace of the herders. There was, I think if I can count persecution on my fingers, I may not exhaust my first right hand on those who were, but then the damage is enormous. So this time around, I think this administration is being proactive. They'll be packaging it a lot more differently, and it will be people friendly. It will also be environmental friendly, such that the host community will not feel threatened. I don't think consultation was done far and wide. It was more or less like a fiat during the last administration.
Yeah, but the critical question remains, will this stop nomadism? Because these herders, they are used to moving from one place to the other. They don't want to be, to be in a place, to be concentrated in a place. And this is what this intervention will do for them. So in a situation where they are still, moving around in Plateau, in Nasarawa, in Kaduna, after the implementation of this program, will the respective state government be bold enough to, implement grazing ban?
Yeah, thank you, Moses. I think there's a saying by Dr. David Oyedepo that I like very much. He said, you don't do what you like, you do what is right. So you don't run your cattle all across the nation and roll them across because that is what you've been doing before. What is right is that these things should be ranched. They should be ranched. They should be confined to a particular space. Now look at this scenario where people are traveling on the road, and I think I've had cause to see this a few times, and you are just cruising at a normal speed, or even, let's assume, for the sake of those who like to drive very fast, the road ahead of you seems clear. And then, of course, you can project that in the next few minutes, I may need to slow down at that curve. And then out of nowhere comes cattle, and just a little boy leading them across the road. And the apprehension and the fear has cost a lot of people their lives. It has caused a lot of people injuries that are irreparable. It has caused vehicles a lot of damage and trauma to people too. So this is not, it's not healthy. It doesn't make sense at all. It doesn't apply to, it doesn't appeal to any sense of reason whatsoever. The best practice is ranch this, and let's not forget the history and the background where we have coming from. We have had instances where most of these herders have had to carry ammunition, and one of the cases that was built against them was that now each of these ammunition cost in excess of about 2 million naira for one of them. And they on their own side said that, well, they needed it for protection because they were cattle rustlers that were randomly stealing the cattle and harassing them. But when you weigh it on the balance, you discover that the argument to bear arms, and in fact, I think there's still a firearms ban on citizens in this country, which was not enforced on the herders. And they were allowed to run to have a field day with ammunition. Most of them were not licensed. I stand to be corrected, and they had a field day with their ammunition and going about like that. If, let's say, for instance, the mechanics too said, well, we have customers who also do not pay, and most times when we fix brake pad and co, they do not pay. So we also come with guns. It becomes a lawless situation. Or maybe the butcher in the market also begins to be no, we should just be civilized people and live under the law of the land. So there's no case whatsoever for any herder. If this law becomes passed, it becomes a government policy. If it becomes law, for them not to comply. Compliance becomes automatic. Otherwise, there will be sanctions. And I think one of the things I'll be bold to advise the governments of the prospective areas is you begin to make very, very public scapegoats of people. If there are no deterrents, people tend to do as they wish. If there are no deterrents, people tend to do as they wish. But I think this matter that we are discussing becomes very, very key and very, very cogent, particularly for making the economy of the nation to become less hostile as it is now. Once food becomes available, people are able to go back to their farms. It will have a spiral effect on a lot of other things.
We'll touch on the benefits, really. I'm sure it's not just about reducing fights or killings or, you know, the conflict between farmers and others, you know, that this is coming up. It also has, I mean, this also has a lot of benefits, as a matter of fact, economically for the nation. You know, but to refer to the statement you made earlier on about a government official who said that it is when you are alive that you can actually defend your land. The statement was made by Femi Adesina, you know, the presidential spokesman then. And then many people actually felt, oh, this is actually the government's stance on the whole issue. And then it's actually asking people to surrender their ancestral land, you know, by force, you know, to the people. But let's take a look at the benefits, really, the overall benefits, you know, when we actually build ranches rather than having, you know, cows just be roaming the streets. What are the benefits, really?
The benefits are enormous. Number one, we'll have safer routes, and then there will be reduced farmers and herders clashes. That is number one I can think of. Number two, we'll have a more crop yield, because at a particular time between 2019 and 2020, in fact 2017 to 2019, I had engagement in the area of Yewa. I'm talking of Obada Idiemi area. And there's a village called Ajegunle where the farm I was engaged with was situated. Now, there are times in which you could find a herd of about 500, and I'm not exaggerating, cows that will just storm out of nowhere. And then they will descend on a particular farm. Now, if you are the farmer, common sense tells you to flee, first of all, and then leave to plant the farm another day. Because there's a Yoruba proverb that says 10 people are inviting you and you say you are not coming. Either they drag you or they force you by reason of number. You will comply. So you can't do anything against 500 people. You just cattle and then their handlers. But they descend on the farm and then they eat up virtually everything. And this is the case scenario in virtually across the nation. So if this is ranched, now the trauma and the losses that farmers face would be non-existent. Because I'm looking at a total compliance, not partial compliance. Nobody would now walk into your farm, no cow walk into your farm and begin to eat up your cassava, begin to eat up your corn. So that is out of the way. So we also have, number two, we have more security, because the issue of the herders and the handlers of these cows going about with ammunition becomes non-existent. So they are confined to where their cattle and their herds are, and we are able to, number three, I believe, go to where we need them and begin to make our choices from that area, which also helps them. Because once they are concentrated in a particular area, people are able to, either for festivity or for consumption, you're able to approach these ranches. If you want to buy, you're able to buy. And let's not forget also, we have Kara and some other local arrangements that we have around us, where people can access beef and access other livestock for their consumption. So the benefits are enormous. And then the dung that people that is used for fertilizer, you can collect it in one place. If they are ranched, of course, the byproduct, the waste product from the cows can be gotten in one place, and then you don't need to rack your head as to where you can find it.
Yeah, but yeah, we understand that our federal government will bankroll this, but I mean, how sustainable, is this? Because it's cost effective, particularly during dry season, when many herders want to go to other places to get feed and all of that. Don't you think that the discussion should, or the conversation should also include maybe how PPP could also come in? Because if it's just federal government, it gets to a point, there may not be proper funding, just to empower these ranches.
Yeah, Moses, you have made a very important point. Now, the vehicle that drives most and every economy around the globe is the private sector and partnership. What the government does is to create the enabling environment where, and then the policies, of course, that drives it, and then to also create an even playing field for all players. So I don't expect the government to be the drivers of this. There will be need for private partnership, which would fund it, which would drive it, because I've always heard this notion and believe that government is a bad businessman everywhere around the world. But nobody will put in, let's say, for instance, 600 million into a ranch in a particular area, and then there'll be no supervision, there'll be no accountability, there'll be no vetting of the books to see what goes in and what comes out. No businessman will do that. Just look at the refineries, look at Dangote, how he runs his own as against an entire nation of 150 million people. So the difference is staring us in the face. We just need to have private partnership with the government. And in fact, it should even be privately run. It should be private. The government should come in initially, maybe just to hold the fort for people to join in. And I think a lot of people will join in. Now, let me say this in addition to it. This is one area that we have not tapped into for economic benefits. There are a lot of benefits in it. Now, by the time this is done, now I can see a situation where people begin to also bring the farmers who have been at loggerheads with the herders, begin also to bring produce that the cows would need and begin to sell. It becomes a win-win situation. And then, of course, you could have a butchery very close by for people who would want to buy, maybe 3 people are coming together just as we have to buy a cow. There's a place where a slaughter nearby that could take care of that for them. And then you have employment for a lot of people. And then, of course, there's the people we have in the diaspora who know that for a certain fact that the beef abroad tastes different from the one from home. So they're able to send, I just need a whole cow that can be prepared for me and my family, and then let me know the cost, and then it will be taken over there. So you have a lot of benefits, enormous benefits from it that we are yet to tap into.
There are those who are actually of the opinion that the government should not even invest in this, that the government, all it needs to do is to just give instruction. Everybody, if you know, I mean, because some people own, these cows that we are talking about. So if government is actually helping people to create ranches, then the poultry farmer should also have government come and help him, set up his pen. The person that is also rearing pigs should also, government should also come and help them to set up, their piggery and the rest of them, So, do you think that argument is also valid?
Very, very valid. Very, very valid. And it comes to the realization of, can 2 things be right at the same time? Yes. It's just like somebody touching an elephant. He says, well, it's an animal that is big, he's correct. And another person touches it. This is an animal that has, like, this is horns only, because you are touching the trunk of it. Now, this is very, very true, because there's no need for bias. Now, if realtors too come together and say, well, we should have a secretariat everywhere, so that we don't begin to quarrel with people, like you said, the chicken and poultry farmers to begin to, then the government will deplete its resources doing that. But I believe the conversation and the need for this is because of the urgency and the peculiarity of the situation. This has been a hot issue in Nigerian life for the past 8 years, in fact, longer than that. So, and there's what is called what you treat as emergency. At one point, government needed to declare state of emergency in particularly in some states because of activities going on there. So if a state of emergency is declared in this area that needed government intervention, that needs government's attention and supervision, I think it should also be within a particular framework. There should be a framework for that, and the need to address this as a national issue, nobody can dispute it. Nobody can dispute it. It has cost lives, it has cost unrest, it has cost a lot of bad blood, that when people see those of Fulani extractions, they become apprehensive. And the person who doesn't have anything to do with shooting down cows or eating other people's farms becomes the victim for lynching, just like we've seen in some cases like that. So if government is coming in to intervene in this area, it should also be with a lot of guidance and framework. They are coming in, it's just to temporarily to set it up, to set up the stage for its operation, and then government pulls back. So nobody would argue against that, because anybody who is living in Nigeria today doesn't need to be told, farmers and herders. When you go to the market, it will tell you that something is wrong, and it has an origin with farmers and herders clash.
Yeah, well, okay, maybe let's talk about the cultural clash here, because nomadic herding is a lifestyle and identity, particularly to the northerners, to the Fulanis, and settling down in a place is like they are losing, their freedom. Are we putting the horse before the cart? Do you think federal government has done adequate advocacy just for them to, because they have to change their orientation. There must be a culture shift, for this to be well implemented, for the headers to understand that, oh, okay, our forefathers did things this way, but it's high time we stopped doing this nomadic heading. I don't think federal government has done enough of that.
I agree with you. Federal government hasn't done a lot of adequate advocacy and enlightenment program, and I think this is part of the early stages of what should be done. This is the groundwork that should be laid in whatever it is that they need to do, engaging with these herders and speaking to them in the language in which they will understand. And culturally, we must also be able to balance it. Now, when the Europeans came to Nigeria, we had the criminal culture of killing twins because we believed that they were not normal. But then they opened our eyes to the evil that's in it. And we have long stopped that because we saw a superior argument. A lot of people have lived today. Imagine how many people will have continued dying if that had been the case today. So I think explaining to the herders and getting them to see superior argument and the benefit, what they stand to gain, will help in this area. The advocacy that federal government needs to do has to be very, very heavy, and it has to be very, very sustained. It has to be very, very heavy. It has to be sustained. It has to be well funded. It has to be well oiled. And I think I stand to be corrected. A lot of it has to be done on radio, because these are not people who watch cable TV. These are not people who have smartphones, except of course for the bandits that we see that have access to that. A lot of it has to be done with radio, and there's a lot of ways in which they could do that. There's drone technology today, clusters where you have them. You could send in messages in their languages, maybe by horn speaker vehicles, go as close as possible to enlighten them. But I think we are not short of innovative ways of reaching them. But we need to first of all engage with them, enlighten them, talk with them, and let them finally see that this is what the government as a body has stood for. Somebody said, talk softly but carry a very big stick. So this is the government policy. It's not what you want to do.
Well, an average person will say that the problem is not the ordinary or the common Fulani boy that is holding stick and herding the cattle. That the problem is the big masquerade in the room, the person that owns the cattle. And these are the big men, really, who are also educated, who also, they are mindful of advancement in, rearing cattle, even in advanced climes. They know, but they don't just want to put in their money, in having an organized system. They just want to pay the herders peanuts, and then they reap humongous amount from the money, when the cows are sold. So can we really say that these owners don't really understand that times have changed, that the society will now have more people, and so the space is actually restricted, it's actually smaller compared to what it used to be. And then there is also the argument that when the cows are in a particular place, when they are sedentary, they tend to grow sick, and then they are not that healthy. But when you move them around, they become strong, their bones are strong, they become big, and they are healthy. How true is this?
That is Tales by Moonlight. Because we've seen cattle in the United Arab Emirates in Saudi that are ranched, and we see how big they are. And without
bigger than even our own.
Thank you, Dominic. And without eating it, you can even tell that it tastes better. So I said that to be able to say this next point. When government decided to take on the petroleum cartel, as it were, the syndicate, and withdraw subsidy. Though that is a case that can be argued both back and forth. The government did it in one day. Actually, when Ashwaji Bola Ahmed Tinubu came in, it was the first line of action for the day. Just take out the subsidy, let everybody do as they please. Now, this is government too. If government decides to crush any cartel, government has the will, except government is not ready to do it. Now, I give this case. When the mafia was beginning to become a menace one time in the United States of America, and particularly in New York, and the government decided to go against them. You can't have more resources than the federal government, no matter the big man that you are. You are a big man in your community. But this is the biggest man in the country, the government, with logistics, with resources, with intelligence, with network, with personnel. So that knocks out the argument of any big man anywhere. If government decides to face it, and is not shy about it, and makes, like I said, a scapegoat out of people, this is where we are going. If you are a big man and you cross this line, there are deterrents to it. And nobody's ox is being gored. There's no favoritism about it. Nobody's making a phone call as soon as one person is arrested and say, he's part of our party members, he donated during our Congress, and then the person is released. No. But if we mean business about it, everybody will fall in line. Just like everybody fell in line, at least to some extent, with the fuel subsidy issue, and then with the mafia issue. Can we say that there's no mafia today? Well, of course there are, but you can't. You are operating underground, as under the radar.
Little or no impact.
Thank you very much. But today you are flying above radar. Everybody is hearing your impact. Is because government is not ready to bring its foot down and insist on compliance.
Well, if this is successful in the northern parts, then they look for how to also implement it in the southern part, southwest, southeast, and south-south. And I know that the north occupies about 62%, some say 70% of Nigerian landmass. So the northern Nigerian has, the landmass, can even afford to have like 5 ranches in each state. Now, coming down to the south, there may be some resistance, just like we saw when a boy wanted to introduce Uruga, because there will be resistance regarding, the land that will be given, because there will be hundreds of hectares that will be allocated for these ranches. What precautions do you think federal government must take if they were to implement this in the south?
Thank you, Moses. I think this becomes very, very easy too in the light of what we have been discussing so far. Now let's take Okeogun as a case study. If a ranch is coming to Okeogun, government will need to do a lot of enlightenment and advocacy in Okeogun and environments. The traditional rulers will need to be informed. And I think there's a lot of distrust. I know there's a lot of distrust between government and the governed. The government needs to lay all the cards on the table. Now, we are bringing this, excuse me, noble events to, excuse me, to your area, and we will guarantee you.
Okay, probably we should just take a breather here. We go on a very quick break, and then when we come back, the conversation, is going to continue. Do not go anywhere. The program is still Nude On right here on OGTV. The program is still Nude On right here on OGTV, the People's Daily, and the focus this morning is still on building ranches to curb farmers and herders clashes. And we still have in the studio with us Bayo Labode, a current affairs analyst. Okay, so let me allow you to actually make your point. The point you were making earlier on.
Okay, so if government decides to face a particular issue and a particular task and handle it head on, it has the enormous resources to do that. There's no escaping its reach. There's no escaping its its grasp and there's no escaping its resources. So what we just need is for government to bring this as a focus, put it on the front burner as an issue of national emergency, as they have done, and then put the guardrails there also. And I think I was making the case for Okeogun area. Now there will be need for a lot of advocacy in that area. Get the traditional rulers involved, get the religious leaders involved, and get the traditional worshippers involved. Let it be an advocacy that is across board. Let it be done in churches, let it be done in mosques, let it be done in communities, let it be done among the youth, particularly among the youths. Bring them in, because these are the people that would, on whose shoulder this will ride. Do a lot of advocacy in that area and open their eyes to the benefits it will bring into their area. Let them see that they are privileged to have this ranch, particularly in their area. This is what you stand to gain. You know, when you want to get the best out of a child, come, I want you to get me empty and recharge across the road. Now this is 500 naira, this is under 50 naira for you to buy biscuit. The motivation is there for them. So let them know what is in it for them. Advocacy in that area, enlightenment, awareness, a lot of publicity, and I think they'll be good to go. Particularly in the southwest, where we have a lot of skepticism. Let the government face all the cards up, let there be no hanky-panky, and then there'll be guaranteed security, of course, in that area, in those areas. Because of past experiences, people will not want their fingers to be burnt a second time. Government will need to give guarantees and assurances, maybe a few battalion, maybe a battalion or so of military people, because of our distrust today for other law enforcement agency. I'm not saying this to discredit anybody, but then the involvement of Amotekun also actively in that area. I think it's the messaging and the packaging is just the issue.
Our forebears actually did so well in putting in place grazing reserves, you know, across the length and breadth of the country way back. What is happening to that? Can't that, you know, be reactivated as a matter of fact, or have we built houses in all of those places?
That is not far from the truth, Dominic. They are grazing reserves, and it is gazetted in the laws of in our books. But today, if you go and check where the grazing reserves are, you may find it is the former headquarters of PDP or SDP or NRC or some of those defunct parties, or maybe a structure has been built there by one a senator or so. So reclaiming it becomes an issue because of the personality that is involved. But if we also merge this together, there are grazing reserves where that can be converted to these ranches. I think it even makes it easier. If the grazing reserves are converted to ranches, it becomes easier. Now this is federal government land, and this is what we intend to do with it. We are bringing it to your community. These are the benefits of it for you. We are not taking anybody's land. This is federal government that owns this land. But because we are the host community, I think everything is messaging. Somebody said diplomacy is the ability to tell somebody to go to hell, and then he looks forward to the trip. So if you're able to tell people the benefits that they derive from a particular project or enterprise, they will embrace it. They will embrace it. So let the grazing reserves be turned to these ranches, and let security be guaranteed. Let the host community have benefits that they derive from it. And I think we are good to go with a lot of advocacy, with a lot of enlightenment. It's not rocket science. Other nations have done it. I'm sure they had this issue, particularly in the West today, where they also raise cattle is not an exclusive preserve of northern Nigeria. It is everywhere. They must have had it somewhere in some other advanced nations in the course of their history.
Yeah, but I mean, there are two variables here. Farmers, herders. So if you're having this key intervention, for herders, what about the farmers here too? they also want more, so that it won't lead to favoritism of the northern elders. So what should federal government also give to the farmers in return?
Moses, I think without belaboring the point, for a long time we've been having fertilizers that government has no business being in, that is being targeted towards farmers. I think I know that for a sure. Seedlings. Thank you very much. And you see, this has led to the setting up of the IITA, the one in Ibadan, ICRISAT, and a few other projects, just to help to boost. And you remember during Obasanjo's first thing, Operation Feed the Nation, it became a policy. Something was done for the farmers, though I know more can still be done. More can still be done. There's room for improvement in anything we do.
Well, we must thank you sincerely for your time with us this morning, taking a look at this very important issue. And I'm sure and I hope that the managers of the affairs of the nation will take into consideration quite a number of the salient issues that you have raised. We must thank you sincerely, Mr. Bayo Olabode, for your time with us this morning dissecting the issue. He is a current affairs analyst. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, Dominic. Thank you, Moses.
Yes, Moses, we've got to go.
Yes, well, our new down returns on Monday with another set of anchors. Many thanks for watching. Do enjoy your weekend. Bye for now.